Rayman Origins is that rare 2D platformer that owes a debt of gratitude to the past without being burdened by it. There's an unyielding level of difficulty bubbling beneath the surface of this terrific side-scroller that you can trace right back to the genre's 16-bit heyday, but it's complemented by a decidedly modern abundance of checkpoints that ensure your fate rests in your hands rather than a finite pool of lives. Combined with a charming art design that's equal parts absurd and beautiful, what you have here is a platformer that gives you every last reason to keep running along in spite of any challenges you might encounter. Rayman Origins is a living, breathing testament to the artistic possibility of a 2D canvas. Every one of the game's numerous landscapes is filled with rich, hand-drawn detail. There's an almost eccentric level of variety on display here. One moment you might be swimming through a haunting underwater abyss, and the next you'll be leaping across an industrial cooking pot full of molten lava in some hellacious nightmare of a Mexican restaurant kitchen. This is a platformer built with the idea of player momentum firmly in mind. Most levels are intricately designed pathways built to encourage a quick pace, with transforming environments, wide gaps, and enemies who frequently get the better of you if not attacked head-on. Fortunately, Rayman Origins' tight, responsive controls give you every tool needed to accomplish this left-to-right journey. You start only being able to sprint and jump, but you eventually unlock new abilities such as gliding through the air and running up walls and ceilings. But no matter how extravagant your moveset becomes, the game always responds precisely to your inputs. And that's a good thing too, because Rayman Origins is a challenging game. While it starts out easy, the difficulty curve moves on a constant, gradual upswing. Later levels become twisted death traps outfitted with all manner of fiendish traps. Yet none of it ever feels cheap. You're always in control, and the sensation of darting through these intricately placed hazards makes for an extremely rewarding experience. In this game, you never need to worry about having to repeat an entire level over and over again thanks to the generous use of checkpoints. But the one area where the difficulty curve does falter is in the game's small handful of boss fights. These creatures are always a sight to behold, but they're an inconsistent bunch where your thumbs meet the controller. The challenge posed by these bosses holds little correlation to the sequence through which they're unlocked. One particularly harrowing fight is followed up by a total pushover, creating a weird inconsistency in an otherwise very consistent game. Fortunately, boss fights aren't the only changes of pace to the game's core 2D platforming. One recurring palate cleanser has you jumping on the back of an adorably pink mosquito and shooting your way through a series of hazards floating all around you. These levels are a blast, feeling like a vintage shoot-'em-up covered in a thick layer of Rayman's absurdist humor. Throughout all of this, one persistent element to Rayman Origins is the sheer abundance of collectible doodads strewn across every chunk of the landscape. Everywhere you go, you'll find things like lums, this game's version of coins, hidden challenge rooms, and other scattered rewards placed in treacherous locations that often puts you at odds with your own survival instincts. Much of these are purely optional, like collecting enough items to unlock new character skins, but unfortunately, the level progression system suddenly becomes very demanding once you cross into the second half of the game, forcing you to go back and replay prior levels you didn't already scour for collectibles with an almost obsessive-compulsive attention to detail. However, the forced replaying of previous levels, or any levels really, becomes an altogether different experience when played in offline co-op. Rayman Origins uses a dead simple system of drop-in, drop-out co-op that allows up to 4 players to run and jump through every single level of the game. It's a hilariously chaotic form of multiplayer where the risk of being accidentally smacked around by a teammate cancels out the built-in advantage of having a few extra lives at your disposal. But no matter whether you choose to approach this adventure by your lonesome or with 3 friends, the fact remains that this is a charming, gorgeous, and thoroughly entertaining 2D platforming experience. Rayman Origins draws a lot from the past, but it does so while managing to feel fresh and full of life. This is one love letter to a classic era of gaming that's absolutely worth reading.